All right, welcome back, everybody. Today is day 8 of our program. We are in our second to last class, and we're continuing with our mini projects. Um, Before we actually get deep into our coding, I want to address an issue regarding GitHub code spaces. Right. So, um, student reached out to me recently about issue with uh GitHub code spaces. And if you guys may recall from a previous um, class, I talked about how code spaces is uh, there's different versions of GitHub code spaces, right? There is the free version that every account gets when you create a GitHub account, and then there is a paid version. I think there's like an enterprise version, right? And each version that you pay for is you get more runtime, more usage out of it. You get more cores. Um, and if you want to deep dive more about what every aspect of GitHub Codespace is, you can definitely look into the documentation. But what really matters for you guys is that um, for those of you who are still using GitHub Codespaces, um, there is a limit to how long you can use it per month, right? I mentioned this before, and that usage is 120 hours, um, or I think if you reach your memory capacity, whichever one comes first. Right? I don't remember how much memory capacity it is from the top of my head. Um, so we had one student reset today, and you guys or anybody that's still watching, we're still getting some views on our videos that does not reflect our student count. So for those that are still watching these videos and are still using code spaces, just be aware of that issue. Now, what does that mean? Well, um, you can do two things, right? You can wait until it resets because it will reset, right? You get 120 hours per month, and it resets at the beginning of every month. Um, so you can either wait or you can use um, VS Code on your computer. Now, the reason why we didn't start off that way is because if you guys remember day one of our course, the absolute disaster of trying to get everybody to even get GitHub code was horrible, right? I got a lot of messages about like, oh, the instructor didn't help me set up my code spaces. I asked multiple times in chat, even though I did teach it like 4 times. It was like, oh, I don't know, my code space is not working, right? So to alleviate technical issues, we use GitHub code spaces because to have every single person here download VS Code, download the extensions, and making sure the computer's set up right. If they already tried downloading stuff prior, there might be conflicting issues. So to avoid all that, we just stick to code spaces, which we can just run on our browser. But in the event that you decide that you want to actually download VS Code, or uh, you run out of usage, if you guys are starting at a later cohort throughout the year and you're going to continue coding on your own and you end up expending your usage, uh, you can go to visualstudio.com, right? And it's simple as a Google search and type in VS Code, and it should be the code.visualstudio website. It's going to be the one at the very top. And you can click this, and you can download for whatever you're using, whatever platform. Um, right, and it's as simple as installing any other program on your computer. Now, VS Code is not actually an IDE, right? So it's called an editor, right? And it's different than other stuff. Like if you've used Visual Studio, which is not the same as VS Code, Visual Studio Code. Those are two different things. Um, you will know there are differences. Some of the stuff that VS Code doesn't have is it doesn't have a compiler, which is out of scope for you guys. It doesn't have built-in tools for debugging for specific languages. Long story short, without getting deep into the terminology of it, um, there's some stuff that VS Code doesn't come with straight out of the box, right? But what VS Code does have are the extensions, and that's how it makes up for the stuff that it lacks, right? So if you recall, day one or day two, or however many days I was explaining the process of setting up your code spaces, part of um, the setup was was installing Jupyter notebooks and Python in your VS Code, right? So when you open VS Code, you have the application, you have it opened up on your computer, right? You are going to want to install the extensions that you're going to use. Now, when you guys download VS Code and install it, the most updated version is going to tell you to log in with your GitHub more than likely. It should be somewhere like it'll probably prompt you here on the bottom right, or it might have something in the top right. You'll probably log in with your GitHub account, right? And then you're probably wondering, well, how do I get the curriculum from GitHub or from CodeSpaces here to my computer? Well, there is a way to do that, right? One, if you want to grab what you are currently already working on for um, your CodeSpaces, what you would do is you would try to either open it in Visual Studio Code, right? Or you can publish it, create a directory, or sorry, a repository on your account. But I think opening in Visual Studio Code, I've never tried this. Here, let's go. Let's try it out. It's because I'm running VS Code. Let's try this again. You could do this, but this doesn't exactly copy it to your computer, right? You're kind of just um, opening up here, right? So let's not do this. I'm gonna show you how you would copy it here, right? The way that you would work this is you would go to your code spaces and you would publish to a new repository, right? What this is going to do is going to create a a directory, or what GitHub calls a repository, onto your GitHub account, right? And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mark it as private just for the sake of this demonstration, and I'm going to create a repository, right? You can set it to public or private if you want people to see the history of your project, right? Your project, quote unquote, your repository. But I don't really care for that. This is mainly for the demonstration. But when you click this, it's gonna take a little bit. It takes about 10, 15 seconds. And it's going to publish this to your GitHub account, right? It's going to kind of, what it's going to do is going to take a copy of the folders from your code spaces and it's going to send it to your GitHub repository part of your GitHub account, right? And I wish it would hurry up. Um, Awkward silence. Give me a second. Hmm. It's taking a lot longer than I expected, right? But why it does this, what you're going to do is you're going to open up your VS Code, right? When you open up your VS Code, it's going to automatically start at the root level of your computer, right? Let me see if I can open up. Uh, that's okay. Right, it's gonna start at the root directory of your computer. You're not gonna have anything set up from Ubuntu. For those of you who are thinking about setting up your virtual machine, don't worry about it yet. But it's gonna start at the root level of your directory, and the way that you're going to bring it to your VS Code is going to be as simple as using the URL that we used before. Right. Let me go to my GitHub here without leaving it. Uh, and it looks like it's already here. I don't know why this is still loading. But whatever. You see here that I got the fuzzy carnival version of whatever my repository was. And oh no, did I lose my data? Okay. Give me a second. Maybe because it's taking forever to run this. It's taking forever to do this. I don't know if it froze or not, but I'll use a different version to do this. I'll just use uh this example repository. When you get your repository here, it's going to look like this, right? Where you're going to have all your directories listed out, files, folders, and whatnot. Just like we did before, right? From day one, what you're going to do is you're going to click on the code button, and you're going to copy this URL path, right? You're going to navigate back to your VS Code, and what you're going to do is you're going to type in git clone, right? Git clone. There's going to be the command for you to essentially copy and paste your repository to your VS Code. You're going to put a space, and you're going to press Control V, and then you press enter. All right, as you see here, it's going to start cloning into wherever you are at. Then it's going to finish. And it is here. Cat beams. It did copy in here, and here's the two directories, right, that came from that repository. So you are able to copy repositories that you might have on GitHub and bring them down to your computer, right, and then use them. I just have a randomly generated repository for examples like this. There we go. Now it finished. Let's see the repository. And I guess it's not working. Okay, well, we experienced this issue with a previous student, where we tried to move it here. For some reason, we lose our data. Let's see if I can troubleshoot this.
When I did the move to my VS Code, you have to save it on the PC, and it'll save the directory and all your information. Downside is you can't go back and root it to the original.
Yeah, I guess we have to do it more manually. That's very upsetting. It's okay. No biggie. You win some, you lose some. Okay, I guess don't do this. Let's go ahead and see if there's a different way of doing this. Maybe if I open up this one. Let's open up my other example that I had used during day one. And see how I can use this one to export it to my VS Code.
Hey, sorry, I was a couple minutes later. Are you just trying to clone the repo?
No, I'm trying to. Well, yeah, we're cloning the repo, but essentially we're bringing down the curriculum from CodeSpaces, right? So, the issue with CodeSpaces is that there is a limit to how much you can use it per month, right? And that's going to be 120 hours, or once you reach the space limit, which I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. We have a student that already experienced this where they aren't able to access their code spaces, right? So the intent here is to show you guys how to bring this down to your computer. And code spaces is not playing along. But let's go ahead and see if we can do it from here. I guess the best way would be to maybe save it, right? Save it into your computer and then open it from VS Code.
Yeah, that's what I had to do. I did the exact method to like we did code spaces where you copy the URL and then bring it over.
Yeah.
But you have to save it as a file for VS Code on your PC, and it'll let you go into it. But the downside is if like I did last week or on Monday, I completely screwed up the code layout for the problem, and it excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, what should have happened was whenever we created this into a repository, what it should have done was bring all the information that we had working into this repository, right? And for those of you who are new to GitHub, repositories it's just a fancy word for folders, right? You can create different folders that hold your projects or code, different files, and then you can collaborate with other developers as well, right? You can add people to your projects, and everyone can work together on one singular project, right? As you just saw, I was able to copy the URL from here and bring down from GitHub, I was able to bring it to my computer, right? And then you'll get more experience with GitHub as you guys progress through the course. We will show you how to, you know, bring down a project to your computer, clone it, be able to initialize GitHub or Git right on your computer, create changes, and then update the repository on GitHub, right? So everyone else can get the updated changes. So you will learn this all throughout the course. But with long story short, you want to essentially have this here, right? You want to bring down your VS Code folder down here. In the event that you don't do it this way, where you come to your code spaces and you save the file, let's say you want to copy any kind of other repository or whatever, then you would get the URL and then do a git clone the same way that I showed you, right, earlier. But this only if you are exceeding that limit with your code spaces and you need some more usage of it, right? You can bring this down to VS Code and just work on it, or you can just cut the middleman out, leave code spaces out of the equation, and then just start using VS Code, right? Once again, to reiterate, the reason why we don't use VS Code to start with is because you will be surprised how many people I get that have never touched a computer, right? And even though we do info sessions 2 weeks prior to the course, they don't show up, and then they show up on day one and they are behind. And now we're having to slow down the class for one or two people. So it's easier just to keep it all within the browser. But all right, let's go ahead and move on. This is enough with code spaces and whatnot. Let's go ahead and start working on our mini project. So let me go ahead and delete this because this is absolutely useless now. And I'm going to grab the link from the class. Today we are going to be doing mini project 2, which is going to be a bump up from what we have been working on. Today is Wednesday. You guys have, for those of you attempting to take part in the Avenger Platoon, make sure that you guys are completing your code by challenges. You have finished your essays and completed your video, right? To reiterate on that video, make sure that you understand your answer to your quarter byte challenges, right? Because part of the video is you choosing one of the exercises and explaining to us what your solution is, why you used it, and how it's achieving what it, the solution, right? And that's very important, right? And that's going to reassure us that you did not just copy and pasted this code from ChatGPT or Stack Overflow, and you truly understand what your code was doing, right? You don't want to copy and paste code or not understand what you're doing, maybe like find a solution or bits and pieces of code and then jumble it together to reach a solution, not know what it's doing, but it's working, and then have to show up on the live technical interview and you're struggling to come up with an answer, right? That you don't want to be in that kind of situation. So mini project number 8. Finally, some interesting stuff. All right, so today's project is going to be to recreate the Powerball, right? We're going to leverage some coding here, and we're going to do something fun today, right? I'm sure you guys are tired of having to just iterate through mindless exercises of code and whatnot. We're going to see how we can, use Python to recreate the Powerball, right? You guys can use Jupyter Notebooks. What I recommend, honestly, is to just create a new Python file for you to work on. because Jupyter Notebooks can be pretty weird sometimes. So let's call this powerball.py. That's going to be our Python file there. And let's look about the Powerball lottery. Now, personally, I don't gamble, right? Or I don't use lottery stuff. I don't buy them. I don't believe in them. I think they're a scam. Chance of me winning are slim to none. So I'm not too familiar with the Powerball. So every time I teach this, I kind of have to teach myself all over again. So let's talk about the Powerball. All right, so the Powerball lottery is a popular multi-state lottery game in the United States known for its large jackpot and widespread participation. Players select 5 numbers from a set of 69 white balls and 1 number, the Powerball, from a set of 26 red balls. Right? The drawings are held twice a week, typically on Wednesday and Saturday nights. To win the jackpot, a participant must match all 5 white ball numbers and the Powerball number. Right? The odds of winning the jackpot are astronomical at about 1 in 292 million. See, this is what I'm telling you. Chance of you win it, I don't think so. Just treat yourself to a nice lunch, you know. Reflecting the game's design to build the large jackpots that attract more players. Right. So, however, the game also offers small prizes for matching fewer numbers, which have significantly better odds of winning. All right. So, where to begin? Going back to prompt solving. All right. So, for those of you that don't know much about the Powerball, which that's me, let's go ahead and just look at the Powerball. Powerball. Let's see it. How does the Powerball lottery work? You guys participate in the Powerball, or is it just me that doesn't do this? No. Okay, good. All right. All right. So here we go. AI is helpful like always. Playing the game, so we have to choose our numbers. We have to choose 5 numbers from 1 to 69, right? Now, if I'm thinking in code, I know that I'm probably going to have to recreate some kind of range, right? I need to be able to choose 5 different numbers from the range of 1 to 69, right? And then one additional number, which is going to be from the range of 1 to 26, right? We know that we have to choose a number from a specific range. And if we want to replicate this to simulate like someone's playing, you, the user, right, you're going to want to give your program some kind of input, right? The program should ask you, hey, choose 5 numbers, right, from 1 to 69, which I'm assuming this is how it works, right? When you go into a gas station, you choose your numbers, right? Is this how it works? You choose your numbers, your lucky numbers, I would assume, and then you give this to, this is how you choose your Powerball. Is that correct? Who does the power? Who does Powerball here? Nobody. I usually have at least one person that's like, yeah, this is how you do it, yada yada. Was very knowledgeable about it. But yeah, so you choose your numbers, right? So you're able to choose 5 numbers. And then afterwards you purchase your ticket. You buy a ticket for $2 per play from an authorized lottery retailer. All right, so the first part, choosing your numbers. So I know I'm gonna have to receive some kind of input to choose my numbers. Chavez says you can pick or get a random ticket. Of course, you do it, Chavez. I could have guessed you do the Powerball. You pick 5 numbers plus another Powerball number. Okay. All right. With jackpot, you have to match all 5 white balls in any order, right? And then the red Powerball to win the jackpot. So, the keyword here in any order already starts letting me know that I don't have to worry about where my values are. When I start creating the data structures to code the choosing numbers for my player, I don't have to worry where it is in the order. I just have to check everything in my data structure to make sure it matches the winning ticket, right? And this is the stuff that you should be thinking about if you're reading this. So we have to match all 5 white balls in order, and then the red ball to win jackpot, right? Then jackpot winners can choose between okay, this doesn't matter, other prizes. All right, so you can win other prizes by matching some, but not all, of the numbers. See the Powerball price chart for details on prices and odds. Okay, let's look up this this price chart. Right, Powerball. Let me open another tab so I don't lose this. Powerball price chart. All right, so apparently, depending on how many you score, oh, this is awesome. All right, so here we have what happens if you match all 5 plus the Powerball, you get the grand prize, which whatever it might be, whatever money they pulled together, 2 million for all 5, but no Powerball. I'm sorry, 1 million. What is the difference between power play 2 times, power play 3 times? This is how many times you play? Let's go ahead and just stick to 1. We'll do price. Let's ignore power play 2 times. Right, so let's stick to just prize, where we have the grand prize, 1 million for 5 balls, 50,000 for 4 balls and the red ball, 100 for 4 balls, 100 for 3 white balls and 1 red ball, and so on and so forth, right? So Powerball price chart. So let's go ahead. We're going to use for our example, and I'm going to send this in the link for you guys to have this, or I'm sorry, in the Zoom chat. So you guys can use this price ball chart so you guys can have for reference. And this is going to be the prize pool that we're going to use to create our simulation in our program, right? So let me go ahead and go back to my code spaces. I'm going to set this to the side so I can see it just as reference. And then let's go ahead and move the Powerball file to the left. Okay. So before we start, ideally you probably want to ensure you add some pseudocode, right? So we need to figure out what numbers we want to choose, right? And we have a method for that, right? And what method is that? How can we receive input from the user? Input, yeah. What happens when you give input, right? How is that saved into our variable? What data type is that?
A string.
A string.
It's a string, right? So we're probably going to want to ask our user to choose 5. Is it 5? Select 5 numbers. Yeah, 5 white balls from 1 through 69, right? I'm gonna add a note here. Oh. Oh no, what's going on? Copilot. What the heck? How do I remove this?
There you go, cheating using AI again.
Yeah, I've never used Copilot on VS Code. Well, this is Code Spaces, so I guess.
You might be able to disable it under settings.
Yeah, I can't stand because I see you guys open it up by accident, and you guys just struggle to turn it off as well. Oh, it's an extension. Goodbye. How do I turn you off? Oh, I don't even have it installed. Dismiss Copilot. That's so weird. Okay, now it's gone. Okay, whatever. There you go. So ask our user to choose 5 white balls. Then we're gonna add a note here. Ensure they're converted to int types, right? And how can we ask a user to choose between 5 balls? How can we receive multiple inputs? What's one way?
Could pose a question and choose 1 through 5.
1 through 35? 1 through
Or 1
69?
through 5.
1 through 69 is the range, and we want to choose 5 numbers, right? But
You can
I
do
understand.
5 input boxes.
You could, but we're trying to be developers, right? We're trying to automate this. So let's say, we could probably create a counter, right? Create a counter to track how many times we ask for input. Ask the user for its numbers, increase our counter. Let's update line 5. Ask the user for its numbers in a loop, right? Something like that. Increase our counter. Once our counter is equal to 5, break out of the loop, right? And I'm kind of just doing some pseudocode here to kind of get me started here. And then you would just go back and start adding some code, whatever, between each of these. Kind of just breaking it apart to ensure that you get some kind of a plan going. Once we get our 5 white balls, we're gonna want a red ball. So maybe you can add it, you can manually ask for the red ball, or you can probably, add a statement to here to choose that depending what range your counter is, you ask 1 input. If it's, if the counter is equal to 6, you're asking for the red ball. So you give it another type of input. So, you guys use your creativity here. And then, once all balls have, or all numbers have been selected, what's next? What can we probably do? Once we get the white ball, we get the red ball, to try to mimic this game, right? What's the logical way of approaching this?
Could you import random and just use random number generator to basically select from a list of 5 numbers and then the 6 from a secondary list?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So let me rephrase what you said. We want to generate the winning numbers, right? So we can probably use the random method to generate the winning numbers without us having to manually input the winning numbers. I'm assuming that's where you're going with that. All right, so yeah, we could definitely use random. We are going to want to create, right? So once all numbers have been selected, let's say generate the winning numbers, right? Generate the winning numbers. Okay. So we have the winning numbers. And I'm just simplifying it here, right? It's gonna be more code. What else? What else do we probably want to also do? We want to generate the winning numbers, maybe utilizing random, right? I believe it's random. So we have the user's numbers, we have the winning numbers. What else do we think that we might need here to ensure that we simulate this game?
Are you talking about how we're gonna do it? Like,
Yeah, I mean, cause we're hard coding this game, right? We're making this game so then we can play with the computer, right? So the computer should be able to ask us our numbers so we can play. The computer is then gonna have to generate some numbers so it has something to compare our choices with. And I see in the chat, Chavez, he's on it. Different prices depending on matches. Does the computer automatically know how the Powerball works and what we should be winning? No, right? So we talked about prizes. We have the Powerball price chart, and as we see here, we have the grand prize. This is a match. The 1 million. This is the match. I don't know what grand prize is gonna be. Just make it like 10 million, whatever you want to make it, or 200 million, whatever makes you happy. But we probably want to create something that we can use to reference what our winnings are gonna be, right? How should that look like? What kind of data structure are we going to want to do or use to create this chart, right? Do we want a list? Do we want a dictionary? Do we want tuples, a set, right? So, but we do need some kind of data structure to create our price chart. I heard someone speak over the mic. Anybody?
I was gonna say, wouldn't it be a for then loop?
For what?
To annotate the prize value.
Yeah. We definitely.
To annotate the prize value if you were to generate the winning combination.
Yeah. Eventually, yeah, you're absolutely correct. So, we're going to essentially, as I mentioned before, we're going to have to generate a data structure that has our price charts, right? And then just like Albin said, uh, use a loop that's going to check our numbers against the winning numbers, right? We're gonna have to, because more than likely our numbers are probably gonna be in a list or in dictionary, and same thing with the winning numbers, some kind of data structure, and we're gonna want to iterate through them and then compare, right? Use comparison operators, and then we want to start if else checks, right? If this is the result, then this is what you get. If you have this match, this is what you get, and so on and so forth, right? So we want to do something very similar to that. Right. And I think what else? We got our numbers. The computer's going to generate the winning numbers. We have a price chart where we need to create some kind of function to compare the winning numbers against our numbers. And then finally, I think just I guess tell the user, this is what you won, right? Or if you didn't win, maybe try again next time, loser, right? Something. But this is kind of where I'm thinking for this to go, right? So when you guys break up into your teams, this is kind of the logic that you should have in your mind of what to create or how to engage this problem. Right? Do we have any questions before we break up into our groups? Okay. The next thing I will say is I want you guys to create this in functions, right? What does that mean? That means like there should be a function that's going to generate the winning numbers. There should be a function that's going to generate the numbers that you chose. There needs to be a function that is going to compare the winning numbers. And then all of this should all be within some kind of like maybe while loop or some loop that iterates until the game's complete, right? So I want you guys to leverage your knowledge of working with functions and loops to kind of bring this all together to have this automatic game run and ask you for this input and do this game to pitch you against your answers and then finally give you a result, right? Now, this is the only problem that we have today, right? So what we are going to do, I'm going to break you up into teams. It's going to be automatic. So whatever Zoom sends you to, you're going to go there. If we get people, I'll send you there. I want you guys to take breaks as needed, right? So if you got to go to the restroom, just go use the restroom, right? If your team decides, hey, we're just going to take a break, every hour, for 10 minutes, and that's what you guys came to the recording with, then sure. I am going to close the rooms at 8 or 8:15. One of those. I'll see. It's gonna depend on your progress and how well you guys are doing. Because we still got to come back and then talk to the problem, right? If it looks like most of you guys finished within time, then I'll close them earlier. If everyone's still working and you guys are close and it's already 8 o'clock, if I don't close the rooms, it's because I'm letting you work a little bit longer so you can finish it off. But it's going to be up to your team. If you guys finish early, then that's cool too. We'll finish early, right? So today is not a set day. Just until we're able to complete this problem. Do I have any questions before I open up these rooms? All right, welcome back, everybody. How do you guys feel?
Feel pretty good.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel like we were getting places. We're just slow progress, but getting it good.
Yeah. Absolutely. Anybody else has their own input? What do you guys think? Did that help you guys kind of mess around with some code? A little bit different than what we've been working on recently.
I'm better at understanding how to read the code on what it's doing, but as to what needs to go where, that is still an issue for me.
Okay. A lot of times we get very confused with the flow of our data, right? The data flow, and it's very important that we pay attention to the indentation of our code. I see a lot of issues with like the indentation where we're putting stuff um unindented when we're doing a for loop. Stuff's not being done within the loop, or let's say there's something that you don't want inside of the loop. You're trying to create a variable like a constant, something that you want to use to track something, and then it's being declared in a for loop. And we failed to realize that every time this loop runs, it's going to recreate this variable and reset it to what you initially set it to, right? But okay, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to give it this an honest try. I do not have an answer key, right? I do not have any solution on my Windows. If I get stuck, I encourage you guys to kind of help me out. Let me know, hey, Roger, it's kind of how we did it, and so on and so forth. And if you guys have input, don't hesitate, come off the mic, and give me your thoughts. The purposes of these exercises is so you can see me struggle in real time and try to come to a solution. Just think about how to get over a situation, right?
You need to disable Juniper Notes real quick, because one of the things that we ran into an issue is it was giving us the answers, and I would go back and clean it up to make it a little bit more simplified on my end, but Juniper Notes basically writes the code for you.
So, thank you for bringing that up. So it's not exactly Juniper Notebooks. What it is, and just so we can get this on camera, it's going to be your VS Code settings, right? By default, when you set up your code spaces, it enables it on the VS Code settings, right? Because this is just a replica of VS Code. So when you guys go ahead and download VS Code, it's going to happen on your VS Code too if you're using a Python file. So if you go to settings, right? So you go to the widget down here for manage, click on settings. It's going to prompt you with the settings tab. And you're going to type in suggest, right? Not suggestions, suggest. And it should bring you to this right here. What you're going to do is you're going to navigate to where it says, where's it at? I disabled it a while back. It's one of these. I think it's this one. It's I create a new code space. It's this right here. Editor inline suggest enable, right? So controls whether to automatically show inline suggestions in the editor. These haven't really bothered me, so I haven't messed with these. But when you disable this, it removes that auto completion feature, so it's not giving you the answers to stuff, right? For one, you don't want to know the answers because you want to be able to work on this on your own. But at the same time, it's also something that gives you the wrong stuff, right? And then if you press tab, it'll auto complete it, and you have to delete it. It's very annoying. So I don't like it. So I highly encourage you guys to remove it. But thank you for bringing that up, Alvin. So yeah, let's go ahead and get this ball rolling. So we talked a little bit before we started. I just went ahead and kind of let me actually bring this back so we can actually use these, right? The first thing that everyone started off with, which is pretty natural, was creating something that's going to prompt the user for input, right? So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to create my first function, which is going to be, let's see, lottery. Let's say user numbers. Right, you can call it whatever you want. It doesn't necessarily need any kind of input, right? I feel like we got really used to creating functions that take input. You do not have to create a function that needs input. It could be empty, and that's perfectly fine, right? And for this function, I want this function to be able to ask my user for input to receive its numbers for its lottery ticket, right? And the reason why I'm making you guys do it into functions is because the purpose of functions is to be able to structure and format your code, right? If there's something that you're gonna be typing out a lot, and you know you're gonna be using a method over and over again throughout your code, that's what functions do for you. It allows you to reuse code, right? And that's one of the reasons why the entire curriculum is built off functions, so you get used to working with functions from the get-go, right? And it makes it easier as you code along in the future. You get used to working with functions. Functions tend to be a very difficult concept for some people. So we're going to create all our methods and functions, and then we could just run the methods when we need them. Obviously, in this scenario, we're not going to need them multiple times, but it's still good practice. So as I mentioned, we want to receive the numbers from our user. And the first numbers I want are going to be the white balls. So I'm going to create a variable called white balls that's going to allow me to keep track of every number that my user selects. Now, there's a couple ways of going about it, and I think the most efficient way of doing this is going to be with a while loop, right? We saw as I was bouncing between rooms, I made you try the for loop first so you can see where that would go wrong and why it didn't work. And then we resorted to the while loop afterwards. The reason why maybe using a for loop isn't the best idea here is because when you use a for loop, you're setting your range, right? If you say for I in range of 5, right? We know we need 5 balls. But let's say the user, right, it's some goober and he's trying to mess up with your code. If he gives you the wrong input, it's going to take one of those iterations and it's going to be wasted, right? Instead of taking valid input for every single one of them, you only get 2 inputs in the event that they gave you 3 wrong inputs and you end up with an incomplete list. So with that in mind, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep a counter, right? So I'm going to create a variable called counter and I'm going to set it to 0, right? This variable is just a regular integer that I'm going to be able to manipulate so I can use it to reference how many times I've received input from the user that is valid, right? So whenever the user gives me a number that is within the range that I'm asking for, and it is a valid data type, right? It's not a string, I'm sorry, it's not like a letter, right? Or a special character, then I'm going to increase the counter by 1. But in the event that I do not get the input I'm asking for, then my while loop needs to continue and not count that try, right? It needs to keep doing this until I successfully get a valid number. So that is a point for the counter. After that, I'm going to initiate my while loop. And as we mentioned before, I want this while loop to go until I no longer or have to ask the user for the 5 balls so that I got the input that I need. Right? We're trying to get the white balls. So I'm going to say while counter is less than 5. Right? Once it's 5, that means I receive 5 successful valid input numbers from the user. But while it's less than 5, I want to tell the user to give me a ball. Right? So I'm going to say ball. And I'm going to say inputs. Right? The input is going to allow me to prompt the user for input, and I'm going to ask it, give me a number between, or let's not say between, in range of 1 to 69, right? When this input method runs, it's going to ask me for input. I'm going to give it to him, and it's going to save it into this variable called ball, right? And after I get that ball, I need to make sure that this is valid input, right? And as we already established before, when using the input method, what comes back from this method is a string, right? And it can be problematic when I'm trying to compare numbers with strings or I try to convert, right? Well, you guys saw doing your exercise, when receiving the input, you naturally try to wrap it around the int method, right? Because you guys try to typecast it, which is a completely logical response. We want to typecast this to make sure it's within the format that we want to use. Now, the issue with this method right off the rip is that it's not going to check whether it's an integer or not it's going to immediately attempt to convert it into an integer, and that's not good, right? Because when it runs the int method, if it's not a supported type, a supported data type, it's going to give you an error. It's going to say unsupported integer type cannot convert string to int or something like that, right? I'm sure you guys ran into that error. So before we actually convert it into an integer, we need to make sure that it is possible to convert it into an integer. And the way that we're going to do that is by using a method for strings, right? And this method is the if digit method. We're going to say if ball dot is digit, right? And the if digit method is it's specifically a string method, right? And what it returns to us is going to be a Boolean. It's going to say true or false. It's going to take the string that is calling it and it's going to check, right? Check if it can be converted to a digit, right? Without actually converting it, right? It's going to check and then return to us a true or false Boolean type. And when we say this, if ball dot is digit, we're essentially saying if true, right? Because this is what it returns to us. It returns to us a true or false, right? If true, or if you want to be very deliberate, you can say if ball dot is digit is equal to true, right? Then we want to typecast it, and only then, right? So if ball is a digit, then I'm going to say ball is equal to int ball. All I do is reassign the value to ball to the integer variation of it. And if for whatever reason this fails, if I get the word 9, then it should fail, and this is going to return false. So in that case, I want to say print this is not a valid number, right? And then again, comma, number, choose a new number, right? All right. Scott, welcome back. I'm glad you got your power back, my man.
It's the beautiful thing about batteries.
Yeah. There is another method which I'm not going to talk about too much, but if you guys looked it up or try to Google search or you ask ChatGPT, it probably gave you something similar to this, where it's going to be say try ball equals int ball, except value error, print this is not a valid number, right? Some of you might have encountered this code if you guys did some Google research or you asked ChatGPT. ChatGPT is kind of like a double-edged sword, especially when you're first starting off. When you ask it to give you an answer for something, it's going to assume that you have every knowledge of Python for some reason, and it's going to give you very elegant and advanced methods of doing stuff, which you guys are not exactly there just yet, right? So you might have encountered this. So the way that this works is very similar to an if-else block, right? It's going to take everything within the try block and is going to run it, right? And if at any point within this try block something fails, it's going to immediately default to the except block. Normally it doesn't have the value error. It's just called try and except, right? But when you add except value error, what this is saying is try everything within here, except if you get a value error, right? Where would we possibly get a value error here? Well, a value error would be when we try to do a conversion and it's the improper value, right? So this would fail and it would return a value error. Roger, what's the value error? The value error is a built-in error message that you automatically get. It's pre-built into Python. It's kind of like the errors that you see on your terminal that says like syntax error, right? Invalid value types, or a value error like this one, right? Those default built-in Python error messages, that's what this is catching, right? So I just wanted to talk about that briefly in case you saw it, because I did see some people that had this code. This is a more an advanced way of doing it. You can use it as you get better. But all right, so we have this so far. We're checking if it's true, and if it is true, I want to convert it to ball. If not, then this should be not a valid number, right? Now, if this successfully did convert into an integer, and only then do we want to do the following, which is going to be to check whether it's within a specific range. So we're going to say if ball is greater than or equal to 1 and ball is less than or equal to 69, then I want to add it to my list of balls, right? If it's a valid digit and it's within the range that I'm looking for, then I'm going to add it, right? If this if-else statement fails, then it needs to say this is not a number between the given range, right? We can nest if-else blocks. We definitely can. This kind of goes back to the initial class on day 1, where one of the assignments was nesting your way through a bunch of if-else statements. If you guys recall that, right? That was an exercise to kind of get you used to doing stuff like this. So, after we pass this if statement, it goes into another if-else block, which is completely valid. Now, you don't want to overdo this like that practice exercise. I had a bunch of them, right? Because then it's very messy, right? But this is perfectly okay. It doesn't look too messy. It's very straightforward, right? So after this is done, after we append the ball, what do we need to make sure happens after a ball is added?
That we can't get any repeats.
Not that's a very good one. We'll cover that in a bit. We want to ensure counter is increased, right? Because we already found a valid number, so we should say counter plus equals 1, right? It's an integer type. I see a lot of confusion using counters, right? Every single time I use counters, or I show somebody how to use a counter, people are like, I don't know how to do it. It's just an integer, right? Treat it like a number. If you want to increase it by a certain value, then add that value to it, right? So it's just a number. We're just leveraging this data type and using it a specific way that we are familiar with, right? So no crazy trips here. You can do counter plus equals 1 or counter is equal to counter plus 1. Both these lead to the exact same output. Now, I think that was Travis or Trevor. Sorry, there is a Travis in this call. That's why. Yeah, I think it was Trevor that mentioned it. What happens if it is a repeat? That's an absolutely great question. Well, let's do it. Let's check it out. If ball is greater than 1 and ball is less than 69, I think we can do, I have not used as many. And ball not in white balls. Yeah, I think we can. Then we want to do the following, right? If you want to make sure that this is formatted in a way that makes more sense to you, you can put these in parentheses. And it should not give us an error. Yeah, it should be fine. All right, so if it's within the designated range and is not in balls, then we're going to append it and increase the counter. Or if you really want to specify what happens if it is a repeat, then you would add this into another if-else statement. If ball not in white balls, else print this number has already been selected, right? So we got a lot of stuff going on here. We're checking for different conditions. Angelica, I see your message. Have a good day. This shit's already gone actually, but yeah, there we go. So let's give this a try. We have to counter +1 whenever we find a valid number. By the time that counter is 5, they should stop running. So when should we return our list? Well, once we are out of this while loop, and only then. There's no reason why we need to leave this function until we get what we asked for. We're gonna say return white balls. And let's go ahead and run this function. I'm gonna say user numbers, and let me put it around a print statement. I just noticed that I've been doing this on a small screen, so I'm sure you might be struggling on seeing it. I think that's better. Let's try it out. Let's run this. Guess the number between 1 and 69. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me add some spacing here. Put a colon and some spacing. But yeah, so we've successfully got our white numbers. Right? Do I have any questions so far on this part?
I have a question, Roger.
Yes.
So, is there a computational advantage as far as resources of using a counter versus like we used the length of the list?
Actually, no.
Okay.
Yeah, not even. Yeah, not even space. It won't really affect it, right? What affects it is when you start using lists that have nested lists within them. Space complexity wise, no, not really. You're yeah, space complexity is the same, and same thing with time complexity. So computational wise, no. But I like where your mind's at. Those are good questions. You're already thinking ahead. All right. So we got 1, but we are missing the red ball. Now we could change this function to like user white balls and then just keep it to all user white balls and make a red ball one. I'm going to go ahead and try to do it all in here, right? All user numbers. So I have white balls in one list. I'm gonna go ahead and create another item here, and I'm gonna call it red ball. Do I want to call it red ball? All right, so now you start thinking to yourself, okay, well, I got 2 data structures here. I'm gonna need to return the white balls, and I need to return the red ball. So how can I return all of these together? Right? Well, we can say something like this. Since we have 2 data types, you can either do a tuple. I don't like using tuples. I'm not gonna lie to you. Or sets. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a dictionary. So I'm gonna say, user numbers is equal to an empty dictionary. And now this actually did increase my time complexity. Who can tell me why this space complexity is not that good? I'm sorry, not space complexity, time complexity. Is this efficient?
Is it because you're having to iterate through the keys and the values?
Well, right now, I put it back to what it was. We're back to just that list, right? We don't have that dictionary, but this is what I used to have, right? Is this efficient wise? Yes, it's not too bad. It's not bad, right? We don't have nested loops within nested loops within nested loops, but we do have nested loops. Who can guess where the nested loop is at in here?
The return function of the
Negative.
white balls.
No. Take another guess. The additional loop is right here on line 16. When you say if ball not in white balls, this is not magic, right? What that does behind the scenes, it actually does a form of a loop, right? It's going to grab white balls, which is a list. Now, if you did this on a dictionary, it's different, right? on a list, it has to iterate from start to finish every single item, right? Because it's an ordered data structure. This is where your knowledge of your data structure is going to come into play, right? If you're like Scott and you're already thinking about efficiency, right? That's how you determine what's going on here. That not in is going to start a loop through this ordered data structure. Is going to start from the beginning to the end until it finds, or if it doesn't find, the item that's in there, right? So this is actually a nested loop. It's a while loop with a for loop inside of it, right? And I'm only doing this to point it out to make sure you guys are aware that how this works. So because we're checking a list, this is actually going to make it a nested for loop, so it does increase my time complexity. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to create dictionary. I'm going to call it user balls. All right. And in this user balls, I'm going to set up key value pairs depending on whether it's the white balls or the red ball. Right. So let's go ahead and do some refactoring. I'm gonna go ahead and update my code to make sure it's up to date with what I'm working with. So if I say if ball not in user balls, right? This is going to check the dictionary. And if it's not in there, then and only then am I going to add white balls. I'm sorry, user balls. User balls. I'm going to access or create the list that is going to have my my balls. And now we come into an issue. Who can think what issue we have here?
We haven't generated the information for that dictionary yet.
We haven't generated. You're correct. So if I do this, if I say white balls, let's go with white underscore balls. Is this better? Yeah, we'll say white underscore balls. If I say white underscore balls, it's equal to ball, right? And then increase my counter. What happens next time I find another ball? Right, and this is how you have to think about when you're using these loops. Every time this loop iterates, it's going to run this line exactly how it reads it. And it's reading that, hey, I want to access its key called white balls. And I want to save it a list with a ball in it. It's going to take it very deliberate. It's going to recreate this value to a list with a ball in it. Right? And
yeah,
that's
but right, you're still gonna run into a syntax error or error because white ball is not defined anywhere except for user balls, and in the return there is no other location for it to go to. Correct?
I think what we should do is instead of how can we do this?
What about? Because I know some of the stuff that was auto generating in the coding, it it didn't have this many stats. It was, and I know it's not anything we've gone over because it was like mapping and integers and ranges. But couldn't we put user balls equal to like integer range 1 through 69, and then at the end have that range limited by 5?
I know what you're saying, Alvin, and I'm gonna shut down your idea only because can you pull this out in the middle of the live technical interview? I know you just brought so you brought up this method, right? It's a built-in method that we could use, right, to generate 5 different balls in a specific range. And you're absolutely correct. There are built-in methods, right? Would you guys learn if I just gave you a bunch of these pre-built methods to do everything? Probably not the most efficient, right? I don't want you guys to memorize all these built-in methods. You kind of have to start the ground up and hard code this to make sure you know how to manipulate the data, which is why we're going through these exercises. I could most definitely give you all these pre-built methods that do all this work, but reality, are you learning how to manipulate this data efficiently, right? And that's why that would lead you to not learning as much. Does that make sense?
It does, but that's not what I was asking. I was actually predefining what the user balls would be. Would be user balls are equal to, or you say user numbers are equal to uh range of 5 numbers, with the ranges being between 1 and 69. Does it make sense? That way, we kind of eliminate some of this stuff. We can still utilize the digits by inputting them. Basically, we're setting this input of, I can't highlight it, but the ball equals input.
Send me this
We
code that you said you found. So we can visually see it. Can you send me the code?
I can share what I have on the screen.
Sure. Let's
Can
go
I
ahead and see it. Yeah, absolutely.
let me get to my stuff real quick. Uh, uh, no. This section right here, if I using identifying this with this right here, this section right here, the by that. English is not working for me today. I pre-identifying what we're utilizing from here to here. Does that make sense?
I understand where you're getting at, Albin. Can anybody else repeat this in the live technical interview? Could you repeat this? If I told you I want you to code this out, would you be able to code it out right now?
Or another way to look at it is, I'm trying to identify the things. Like using this right here, we're identifying the range of 5 between these numbers. That's what I was trying to, this is what I was trying to say, pre-identifying what we're looking for instead of going to the if else. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes, I understand completely what you're getting at, right? But I can't just do everything with these high speed methods, right? This is an intro to coding class, right? If I start using like the list and the map methods that you demonstrated, then I would start going out of the scope of our class. Does that make sense? I understand you're
Yeah.
predefining it, you're
Okay.
using these nice terms, and it's great and all, but you have to understand that this is an intro to coding class, and it's beyond the scope of this class. For example, the try and
Okay.
accept block, even that I was very hesitant to teach you. The only reason why I brought it up is because you guys were encountering it. But we can't base the rest of our code in our solution off these very fancy methods. There is a time and place for all this, and you will get to it, I promise you. And if you're in that step, I salute you and I'm proud of you. But from the stuff that we're seeing throughout the breakout rooms, we were struggling with simple things like counters, right? Or struggling with the flow of our code. So I don't think we as a class and the collective are ready to start implementing these type of methods. Does that make sense?
It does, but I still, what I was trying to say is, if predefining this is what we're using between this range and this range, instead of the going all the way through to the if else, we have that predefined, and then stipulating that our if or else's or for then loops fall into that particular range. Does that make sense? Basically, we're limiting our scope of information at the beginning and only being able to utilize those items.
You want to loop through 1 through 69. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, but instead of it looping through whatever number combinations, we start out user numbers equal range 1 through 69, and then we can loop through that way, and then maybe add the counter afterwards. We're predefining it instead of having it in your in if else at in your code, it like in the middle of the code. Have it at the beginning. That way we don't have for many steps of if else. Does that make
Yes.
sense?
I understand where you're getting at, and I feel like you're hearing me, but you're not listening to what I'm trying to convey to you. If you want to discuss more about the code, we most definitely can. Let's meet after class, and you can explain to me more about your thought process and how you reach your outcome. For the sake for ensuring that we get to this and we manipulate our data types, 'cause that's what's going to happen, right? You're going to be graded on how you can manipulate your dictionaries, your lists, right? If you know reassigning variables, assigning them, accessing key value pairs, for loops and while loops, controlling this data flow, right? You are specifically being graded on how you can manipulate this data. And if you are using the built-in method, that's good, but not all of us are there, right? I need to make
Okay,
sure that everyone
I,
understands how to manipulate this data.
I understand what you're saying now, and what I was trying to say is limiting the amount of, or limiting the data which we can manipulate is what I was asking. But no, I get it now. That makes sense.
All right, let's go ahead and continue. We'll continue a little bit because we are running out of time. Um, so we have our user balls. For the sake to simplify this, because we are lower on time, I'm going to go ahead and make this into a different function, right? So we can move forward. So let's go ahead and backtrack our stuff. Instead of refactoring different code and explaining all this process, we're just going to go ahead and keep it as our list. And to make sure everything's running, I'm going to go ahead and run it up. All right, and good to go. Now we will just create a different function for red ball. And very similar to how we were able to get this, we only need a specific range, right? So we're going to ask the user for the red ball, and it's going to be input. Choose a range between 1 and, can someone remind me, was it 29?
26.
26. Okay. 1 and 26, right? And with the same logic, as we mentioned before, we need to make sure that we are actually getting what we want from the user. So we're going to say if ball dot is digit is equal to true. Oh, we're using red ball now. Red ball is equal to int. I keep saying ball, red ball. If it's not a digit, then we are going to tell it that it is not a valid number. Choose a number. So if it's a digit, then we can convert it. The next issue would be to ensure that it's within the range that we want. If red ball is greater than or equal to 1 and ball is less than and equal to 69. And we don't need the
26.
parentheses. 26. Thank you. And it's red ball. So if the red ball is greater than 1 and less than 26, then we want to return, because we don't have to append it, right? We are not having to create a list of white balls, and we don't have to keep accounting for how many times we do this. We're just going to go ahead and return it from here. Return red ball. Else, print this number. This is not a number between the given range. And what can you guys already probably figure out that's an issue here?
I'm thinking, well, for our code, we use like a global list to basically use to check everything later on. If you do it this way that you're doing it now, the red ball won't be in the same list as the white balls, and you won't be able to check the numbers together. But I don't know if that's what you're asking right now.
Not exactly. But I see where your mind is at. The red ball, if I don't get any good input from the beginning, is going to just print this out, right? And that's it. Once, right? It's gonna run if it's true, and then it's going to try to convert it. It's gonna check the range. If it was out of range, it's gonna print this is not a number between the given range, and that's it. At no point does this start again, right?
So right below that, you can put a return and then call your method again. If it doesn't
Oh,
match,
you're smart. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, we could definitely do that. We could say, return red ball. Absolutely. What did he just do? What did you just do, Keegan?
so this is a method of recursion,
You could, yeah.
but basically with that, if the conditions are not met, it's going to recall your function again, and it'll keep doing it until the user puts in a valid input for your red ball.
Absolutely. You're the first person in any class to ever bring this up. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so here we run it, right? And I choose between a range of 127. I'm gonna go 8. Oh, what the heck? Return red ball. Hmm.
Eight is valid, I think. That's why, because it printed
Oh,
it out.
you're right. It's late. I've been up since 5. Let's go with 28. I meant type 28. None. This is not a valid number. Choose a new number. Return ball. We want to probably remove this, maybe. Let's try it out. 28. Int object is not callable. That is on line 36, red ball. It's probably because it's going to run anyways. Oh, right here. I think we have to put it in 2 different places. Return red ball. Try it again. Type in object. No, still not liking it. It's
I
not
don't think you
number.
need to return it. I think you just need to call it in both sections. I think that's what the issue is.
Yeah. Let's try it again. No,
What is
that's
the
okay. Int object is not callable. Bu- 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 Return red ball. It's not liking it. I don't know what it is. Why is it not liking it?
Is it because you have red ball as the variable and it's also the name of the function?
No,
Yeah.
I found it.
What is it?
So your red ball is right now assigned as a string, and you're using a comparative operator in your nested if. So you need to pass your int to your input.
My int to my inputs.
So,
Where
you can cast int to your red ball variable.
on what line?
Yep.
On which one?
Go to line 28.
Okay.
Go to the right side of your equals.
Mm-hmm.
Type int.
Here.
Yep. And then do your parentheses. So now that is a int, because on your nested if statement on line 32, you were comparing red ball to numbers while it was still in string form.
Oh,
But
right
on
above
line
that on
30
31, it converts to an int.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I missed
Yeah,
that.
I think Scott might be onto something. I think the fact that we're calling it red ball, we should have
Oh,
red
yeah.
ball choice. We'll just change it up. A red ball. Actually, let's change the method up for the sake of time. Red ball choice. So I don't have to refactor too much.
But it should work now.
Gotta change the other ones too.
Abin, do us a favor. Could you mute the mic? There's a dog in the background. Thank you. Hot mic. There we go. Yeah, Scott was on the money. Yeah, it was because we called the function red ball, but also create a variable called red ball. And then we're trying to call the function itself in here called red ball. So it was a conflicting with what the heck the different types of data types and methods, right? But we're gonna pause it here. Unfortunately, we are running low on time. If anybody has any questions about the assignments, they want to discuss the part that they might be stuck on right now or what their code was doing, I'm gonna stay back for a little bit and we could definitely have a discussion. If you guys continue to work on this on your own and you want me to kind of look at it or you're still struggling with this, let me know. I do want to reiterate before we break off though, right? So through the breakout rooms, right? I was seeing a lot of code either being copy and pasted or got it from the internet. Although it's helpful to be able to reference something, I encourage every single one of you guys to make sure that you give the exercises about 20 to 30 minutes of an honest try, right? Now if you're definitely stuck, then that's when you want to reference any kind of learning material, any kind of like information on the internet. You can ask ChatGPT, but looking stuff up should never be your very first option. You want to make sure that you actually try to expose yourself to a situation where you're going to have to be forced to think logically and critically, critical thinking and apply problem solving skills, right? That's part of the learning process, right? They say nowadays that new software developers can't code because they just rely on ChatGPT or Copilot. But the moment I take those tools away from you, you won't be able to tell me what's wrong with your code. So don't become that statistic, all right? Make sure that you guys are actually giving your problems a genuine try before you seek extra resources, right? Make sense? Still good to look at it, right? Don't waste your time if you've been on it for too long. You kind of have to make that judgment call. Set a timer, right? Yes, Scott.
I just had a question for afterwards.
Okay, awesome. Well, if nobody else has anything for me, you guys are good to go. Thank you guys for showing up. Tomorrow is our final day, and we will be recreating poker, so it'll be very similar to today. So I hope to see you guys tomorrow. It is the last day. Let's just make it worth it, right? And yeah, besides that, thank y'all. Y'all have a good night, all right?